We'll begin with the supplication to the Takpo Kagyu and the supplication to the Shambhala lineage. Great Vajra Dara Chilo Naro Marpa Mila, Lord of Dharma, Kampopa, knower of the 3 times omniscient Karma, beholders of and 8 lesser lineages, Drikung, Taplung, Salpa, these 3 glorious Drukpa, and so on, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, incomparable protectors of beings. The Takpo Kagyu, I supplicate you, the Kagyu Gurus, I hold your lineage, grant your blessing, so that I will follow your example. Revulsion is the foot of meditation, as is taught to this meditator, who is not attached to food and wealth, who cuts the ties to this life. Grant your blessing, so that I have no desire for honor and devotion. Is the head of meditation, as is taught. The Guru opens the gate to the treasury of oral instructions to this meditator, who continually supplicates him. Grant your blessing, so that genuine devotion is born in me. Awareness is the body of meditation, as is taught. Whatever arises is fresh, the essence of realization to this meditator, who rests simply without altering it. Grant your blessing, so that my meditation is free from conception. The essence of thoughts is Dharmakaya, as is taught. Nothing whatever, but everything arises from it. To this meditator, who arises in unceasing play, grant your blessing, so that I realize the inseparability of samsara and nirvana. Through all my births may I not be separated from the perfect Guru, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma, perfecting the virtues of the paths and bhumis. May I speedily attain the state of Vajra Dharma. Primordial Rigden, all good Samantabhadra, great Vajradhara, lotus-born Padmakara, wisdom Yeshe Sogyal, Prahe Vajra, Shri Sim, holders of the ancient great perfection, Tilo Naro Marpa, city accomplishing masters of Mahamudra, please approach and grant your blessing. Dawa Sangpo, the other Dharma Rajas in the 25 Rik, who guide beings to the sacred land of Shambhala. You are the sun and moon, the wish-fulfilling jewel. Your brilliant mind is the ornament of the world. Protect my Vajra awareness, grant your blessings, that I may realize great bliss, wisdom. Gesar Norbu Dradul, you are the great activity lion, all victorious Sakyong. You reveal the treasure of basic goodness and radiate the great eastern sun. Ashe, fearlessly reveals confidence and compassion. May all discover the power of this magic. Udrala lineage of Mukpo, you bring about the new golden age. Grant your blessings, so that I may liberate all beings. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, warriors, masters of the 3 times, you guide us along the path to liberation. You awaken bodhicitta, you teach us the great. You reveal the joy of luminosity, transmitting awareness, wisdom. You lead us to perfect enlightenment. Grant your blessing, so that I may realize my nature as the profound, brilliant Rigden. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tvano Patishta Drudo Me Bhava Sutosyo Me Bhava Suposyo Me Bhava Anurakta me bhava, sarva siddham me prayacha, sarva karma suja me, chitam shreya kuru hum, ha 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 ho. Bhagavan sarvata tagata vajra, mami muncha vajri bhava, mahasamaya sattva am. Om Vajra Bhumi Ahum, the pure ground is the powerful golden earth. Om Vajra Rekya Ahum, the circular iron mountain wall completely surrounds it. In the center is Meru, the king of the mountains. In the east, in the south is Jambudvipa. In the west is Aparagodaniya. In the north is Uttarakuru. Beside them are Deha and Videha, Chamara and Aparachamara, Shata and Uttara Mantrina, Kurava and Karava, the jewel mountain, the wish-fulfilling tree, the wish-fulfilling house, the grain that needs no toil, the precious wheel, the precious gem, the precious queen, the precious minister, the precious elephant, the precious horse, the precious general, the vase of great treasure, the goddess of garlands, the goddess of garlands, the goddess of song, the goddess of dance, the goddess of flowers, the goddess of incense, the goddess of light, the goddess of perfume, the sun and the moon, the precious umbrella, the royal banner victorious in all directions. In the center is the plentiful wealth of gods and men without exception. All this as countless as the atoms in the oceans of galaxies. I set out before you and offer you the assembly of gurus, yadams, buddhas, bodhisattvas, and protectors. Please accept it with kindness for the benefit of beings. Having accepted it, please grant your blessings. In accordance with the capabilities and the diverse aspirations of sentient beings, I ask you to turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, or conventional vehicles.
Palden lama tombe gyabje dultuma me balango rabda de gube jansargen jabsancho chinje la baranze do so omen juje yenje bodana tuzum sanje ganje ngoni Rangsem Jugurung Zum Denze Ba Tsawe Lame Yabla Gujansa Tene Tatari Chenambandana La Chusembala Pe.
So you all have come here this evening to listen to the Dharma, and I feel like this is a wonderful, great fortune for me to be able to come here to the place where the Father, Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, established his seat, which is now the seat of the son, the Sakya Mepham Rinpoche, in this wonderful shrine room here, to be able to give this teaching of instructions by Trungpa Rinpoche is a really wonderful, great fortune for me. And so I'd like to thank you all very much for coming this evening. Now, what we are going to be teaching in this, what I'm going to be teaching in this few days is a song that Trungpa Rinpoche wrote a very long time ago. And so how is it that this song came about? Why is it that he wrote it? Well, a very, very long time ago, there was a great master named Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And he wrote a song called The Song of the Middle Way View, called Recognizing My Mother. And so Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche was a very brilliant scholar. He was a great master. Now, he was a master of the Gelugpa lineage, but he was able to develop real superior realization within himself. And so it's out of that that he wrote this song. And then later there was the master Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, who encouraged Ju Mipam Rinpoche to write a song of the Dzogchen view that would be based upon Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje's song of the middle way view. And so, in this way, there are these songs of the view. There's Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje's song of the middle way view. There is Mipam Rinpoche's song of the Dzogchen view. And so now there's also this third song, the song of the Mahamudra view. And this song takes the previous to the Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje's song of the middle way view and Mipam Rinpoche's song of the Dzogchen view as examples for it. And so that is the song of the Mahamudra view, which we will be discussing. And I feel like this is a really wonderful opportunity, and I'm absolutely delighted to have it. Now, when I was young, I'd heard about Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje, and the sort of impression that I got of him was that he must be this sort of like great meditator, simple life meditator, off in the caves all the time. But then later I actually saw the biography of Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje, and when I saw that he didn't have a simple lifestyle after all. He actually was extremely powerful and really influential. The time that he lived was during the Qing dynasty in China. And it was during the time of the most powerful of all the Qing emperors, Goma Chenlu. And so he was the most powerful of the Qing emperors, and he became a student of Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje's. And so the Qing emperors were powerful, and the most powerful of them was this Goma Chenlung, and Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje was his root teacher. And because of that, he also was extremely powerful and very influential. But at the same time as he was powerful and influential, he wasn't distracted by that. He was able to study the philosophy, study the texts, and became very learned. And he was also able to practice the Dharma and really develop excellent experience and realization within himself through his practice. And so when I think about it, here in America, all of the students who come from America were all powerful. We are all extremely fortunate. We have a lot of merit. But we are not distracted. But if we can practice without being distracted by that and are able to do our practice, then we can actually think about Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje. I think that if we take Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje as an example and use him as an example, then it is really wonderful for us. Now, in his biography, there's a story that tells how great a scholar he actually was. When he was young, he went to central Tibet. And in central Tibet, there were many great scholars from the great monasteries such as Sera, Drepung, and Ganden. There are a lot of great scholars there. And so Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje was a very young Lama, but he was also very well known for being a great scholar. And so there were some geshes in these monasteries who got together and they said, that young Tulku there, they say that he's got some qualities or something like that, but it's just like wrapping something up in silk, there's really nothing there. The way you really develop qualities when you study the Dharma, the way you really develop qualities is by working hard at it, being diligent in your studies and really putting effort into it, and that's really how you become a great scholar, isn't it? And so they all were talking like this, and then Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje comes up and he greets them all, and he says to these geshes, I have a few questions about Prajnaparamita. I'm wondering about this a little bit. I'm wondering if maybe you can help me with my questions here. And one of the geshes said, I've done my studies as well as I can, and I know a little bit about these things. And in particular with Prajnaparamita, this is a topic that is rather fresh in my mind because I have just been studying it, and I've just gone over it very, very thoroughly. And so I really know it pretty well at this point. So if you would like to ask any question about Prajnaparamita, whatever you'd like to ask from the beginning to the end, please do, and and I would be happy to give you an answer. And so then Chögyam Rinpoche, started asking. He asked a question or two, and the Geshe was sitting there having a hard time, really difficult for him to answer all these questions. And later, when they got out of there, he went out and sighed, "Boy, that was really difficult. That Tulku asking those questions, I broke a sweat in there trying to answer them." And so, this is just a sign about how this Tulku was able to become really learned and have a lot of qualities. At the same time, he was not distracted by all his power and influence by all the sensory pleasures. So Chögyam Rinpoche Dorje was also a master who had really wonderful realization, excellent realization, and he wrote this song recognizing my mother. And then the great master Jamyang Khense Wangpo and Mipam Rinpoche thought that it would be good to have a song of the Dzogchen view based upon this. And so Mipam Rinpoche wrote the song of the Dzogchen view. And really, this is a song that has really wonderful instructions, great advice in it. And so then Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche wrote this song based upon both the song of Chögyam Rinpoche Dorje and Mipam Rinpoche's song of the Dzogchen view. He used these two as an example and wrote this experiential song of the Mahamudra view. Now, the time that he wrote it was after 1959. In 1959, there were the difficulties that happened in Tibet. And so most of the Tibetans who fled Tibet fled during this year of 1959. But Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche was not able to flee at that point. And so it was between 1960 and 1961 that he was able to flee from Tibet. And he wrote this song of the experiential song of the Mahamudra view on the road while fleeing Tibet. And so this is as it says in the colophon at the end of the song, where it says that he wrote it at a place called Pema Sangwe Drine, which if you translate it means at the secret the secret lotus place of the flight. And so he composed this at the secret lotus place of the flight. Now, when Trungpa Rinpoche first came to India, he went to Kalimpong, and then from there he went to Rumtek in order to see the 16th Karmapa who was there at the time. And so that was the first chance that I had to see this. And so he showed me this song. And when I looked at it, I thought, oh, this has a really profound meaning. And it's really a great song. It's a really wonderful song, is what I thought. But at that time, there weren't any photocopy machines or anything like that. And so, I didn't have a chance. I didn't have a chance to copy it down. So I just saw it once, and then I thought, oh, there's this song, but I didn't have a chance to copy it or anything. And so this year, when I had the chance to teach the songs by Chögyam Rinpoche Dorje and the song by Mipam Rinpoche, these songs of the view, I thought to myself, well, I really got to teach this song by Trungpa Rinpoche. It's a great opportunity. It's a great chance to teach this song on the Mahamudra view by Trungpa Rinpoche. And so it's really would be really great to teach it. But, I saw the text back in 1961. He showed it to me then. And then sometime in the interim, I also saw the text in the interim, but where it was and how that happened, I didn't quite remember. And so then, we looked and found it. So the opportunity came up. And so I thought I thought that I really have to teach it. And we looked and we finally, we thought it was really necessary and important. And we eventually found it. And so I feel really extraordinarily fortunate to have this opportunity to teach it. Now, generally, when we talk about the Dharma, there is the Dharma that the Buddha himself taught in the sutras and so forth, and then there are also all the treatises that were written by great scholars and masters. And so when the Dharma spread into Tibet, now what we generally teach, we consider that the sutras are extremely important, but when it comes down to it, do we actually study the sutras a lot? Well, we don't actually study the sutras so much. What we study more are the treatises, the philosophical texts. Now, some scholars, refute this. They criticize Tibetans for doing this, and they say it's a mistake to do this. But actually, it's not a mistake to do this. And the reason it is not a mistake is that when the Buddha taught the Dharma, he taught a little bit here, a little bit there, and so sometimes he would teach things in a very vast and extensive way. Sometimes he'd sort of teach them in a very implicit sort of fashion. And so when you look at the treatises, what they do is they combine all the things that are, all the teachings that are spread out in many different sutras. They make what is implicit explicit. They make it, and they bring it all into an understandable, easily understandable way to teach it. And so, for that reason, when we study in Tibet, we generally study the treatises rather than the sutras of the Buddha. But what we consider even more important than the treatises are the oral instructions. The instructions are basically they tell us the main things that we need to practice, what we need to do, and how we do it. Now, among all the types of instructions, there are these songs, or what we call in Sanskrit dohas. In Tibetan, we call them gur, or in Tibetan, we can just say, or in English, we can say songs. And the reason is, these songs are things that they're nice to hear, they're pleasant, they're easy to memorize, easy to keep in mind, easy to practice, easy to understand. And so that is the sort of song that this experiential song of the Mahamudra view is. Now, when we talk about the songs, there are different types of songs that are taught. Sometimes a Lama will be meditating on impermanence and suffering and really internalize it within their being, and so have the sense of renunciation and world weariness and sing a song out of that. Now, is that sort of song bad? It's not. It can really encourage us to practice the Dharma. It can encourage ourselves. It can encourage others to practice the Dharma. But, when we sing that sort of song, what is it like? Well, it's like, singing a depressing song, singing the blues, It's like singing about impermanence and death and, suffering. And so, so that's one sort of song. But this song isn't like this. This song is a song of the view. And this song of the view is, when the supreme realization of the view arose within it, excuse me, a great feeling of joy and delight happened. And so this is not a depressing song. It's not a song about suffering. Sometimes, this is a song about joy and delight. And so this is why this song is so wonderful. Now, in general, songs are really important. But when you talk about depressing songs and all the students just get depressed and weary, that's not so fun. And so when you teach a song that's about joy and delight, then the students all get joyful and delighted, and so it's really wonderful to do this. So these days in America, there are a lot of great lamas who come here. They come here and they give many wonderful instructions. A lot of them give wonderful instructions. They give pointing out instructions. And when people receive these pointing out instructions, some people recognize it. And that is wonderful. And then some people don't recognize it. And then when they don't recognize it, think, wait a minute, they recognize it, they got it, and I didn't get it. Now what do I do? And so the question, when that happens, what do you need to do? You need to develop real certainty in the view. And then when you have that certainty in the view, it is easy to develop realization. And so for those people who have not been able to really develop realization, what they need to do is to study songs of the view such as this. Now, some people, when they receive the pointing out instruction, they get the feeling like, I recognize it. There's this experience. They have the experience, but then they feel like, I'm not able to really sustain this experience. I'm not really able to develop and improve it. And so this is a feeling that a lot of people get. They develop the experience, but they're just not really able to develop it. So I can't develop my experience, so what do I have to do? So now, when you have this experience of it, this is something that happens because of the blessings of the Lama. But it's kind of rare to have the support of the view that comes from experience, or that comes from inference, or of the that comes from the experience of really directly perceiving it. That's kind of rare, and so that it doesn't really develop. And so what you need to do is, if you study songs like this, this is written by Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, but when you look at this, then you read this Song of the View by Trungpa Rinpoche, you study it, and then you put it into practice, and then you think, there's this experience. This is what I need to do to really improve and develop my experience. This is what I need to, this is what I have to do. And so for that reason, even for those people who already have some sort of experience, this song of the Mahamudra view is really important and very helpful. And so sometimes if you read and you listen to and study this song, then you can develop the real certainty in it, the certainty that comes out of logic and inference, and then you can practice on that basis. And so then if you think about the song, think about the instructions in the song, then follow them and can put this song into practice, it will be really helpful. And then also, because it's a song, it's kind of nice, it's really beautiful, and so you can read it over and over again. And so sometimes when you feel like you're losing your faith and your devotion, you can read the song and it'll inspire you. And then you can read the song, sing it, you can pray the song, and then you will be able to receive the blessings of it. And then because of receiving the blessings of it, those who have not yet developed realization will be able to develop the realization. Those who have developed realization will be able to develop and increase it. And so this is what can happen. And so when Chögyam Trungpa wrote this song, he really gave wonderful instructions in this song. And at that time, he particularly showed it. He specially showed it to me, and he said to me, these are really good, important instructions. And so when I think back on it, I think that he was like making a prophecy or making a prediction that in the future that there would be the danger that this song of the view might be sort of lost in the currents of time. It might be just slip away somehow. And so in order that that doesn't happen, he sort of gave me this advice so that it doesn't happen. And so in this way, the Lord of Refuge, Trungpa Rinpoche, showed this to me. And so I feel now that if I can teach this now to the students of this Lord of Refuge, Trungpa Rinpoche, then I think it'll be very hopeful. And so I have the hope, and I also really believe that it will be. Now, just before the talk, I had a few minutes to speak with Richard, and he talked about how when Trungpa Rinpoche said that when he came to America and wanted to establish the teachings here in America, that it was sort of like planting a flower on a rock. If you plant a flower on a rock, it's really difficult to actually get the flower to grow. And so why is it like that? The reason is that there are so many sensory pleasures here. There's so many distractions, so many things to do. It's such a developed country, and because of that, it's very difficult to actually establish the Dharma here. And so in order to be able to establish the Dharma, what is the method? What do we need to do? Well, I think if we have songs of the view, such as this one, it is really helpful. You know, it's like Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje. Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje had all these sensory pleasures. He had all this power and influence, but he was not distracted by them. He was not deceived by them. He was not overcome by them. So he was able to study and to contemplate. He was able to do his practice. And so in the same way, we can also not be distracted by all of the sensory pleasures, by all of the development and all the things that we have. It's as many great scholars and many great masters say. The external appearances are too bright. The internal awareness is too weak. And so that's why often we are unable to practice. The reason we are often unable to practice is that the external appearances are so bright and so vivid, we are distracted by them. And when we get distracted by them, then we aren't able to practice. And you can't really fault anyone for it. But it's like, Trungpa Rinpoche said, you can't plant a flower on a rock. But Trungpa Rinpoche came here and he was able to see the situation, and he was able to transform the rocks into earth. And then he could plant the flower in the earth. And then the flower was able to grow. And so I feel like this song of the view here is really one aspect of the teachings of it. This is like the aspect of the planting the flower. And this is really something that has the power to be able to make the flower really blossom. And so with this song, the title of the song is A Symphony of Great Bliss. And so the experiential song of the view of luminous Mahamudra, called A Symphony of Great Bliss. And so the reason for giving the song this title is, as I mentioned before, this is not a depressing song. This is not singing the blues. It's not making people weary and generating renunciation. This is a song that helps us really develop confidence. The idea of the great bliss, the experience of the great bliss. And so when feeling the experience of this, the joy and delight that comes from it, is what he was meaning when he named this song. So that is why I think he named this the experiential song of the view of luminous Mahamudra, called A Symphony of Great Bliss. Now, when I was looking at this song, I actually wrote an outline of the song. Now, these outlines are actually kind of an old-fashioned Tibetan custom that we do in treatises, and it says the first point is this, and this has 3 points. The third point has 4 different points, which are these. And so, when you look at this, it seems really kind of annoying, actually, sometimes. And so, some scholars, it doesn't really, fit with them, and they don't really like these. But actually, they say, you should make them easy. You should only have one level of topics in this. You don't have to do all this outlining stuff. But actually, when I wrote this outline, and it's a kind of old-fashioned sort of outline, and it says, the first point is this, and it has 2 points. The second point is that, and this is the third point, and the fourth point, and that, and this, and all this. And so maybe it is kind of annoying, but I wrote this outline, and I actually think that it helps us really understand the meaning of the song. And so when I wrote this outline, I looked at the outline that Jamgon Mipam Rinpoche wrote for Chankyar Rinpoche Dorje's song. I looked at the outline that Khenpo Gangshar wrote for Mipam Rinpoche's song, and I took these as a basis, and I basically compared them with this and followed them pretty much. But when there were special points that Trungpa Rinpoche was making, then I altered the topics in order to fit the special point. And so I think that it is rather helpful. And so this song is called a Symphony of Great Bliss. And so here we have the first section, the virtue of the beginning, the first section. And this has two parts to it, the homage and the pledge to compose. And so the first part is the homage. And this begins with the word that says, aho. So aho, this is a sign of just real delight and joy. And so why is it that he has this joy? It's because, so it's a song of saying, so aho means, because he has seen the Dharma nature as it is. He has seen the Dharmata as it is, and he remembers the kindnesses of Guru. And so out of that delight, he says, aho, or wonderful. Now, what is the reason for it being so wonderful? It is as it continues. You who with unrepayable kindness point out secret awareness, our authentic, ultimate, basic sanity as it is, Buddha in a human form, stay in the center of my heart. And so this is the authentic, ultimate, basic sanity, the ultimate Dharma nature, the Dharmata as it is. This is the Dharma Dhatu, the Dharma expanse. And so the ultimate basic sanity is the Dharmata or the Dharma expanse. This is the empty essence of all phenomena. That is what we call the Dharma expanse, the Dharma Dhatu. And so this is something that pervades everything. It pervades, and if we want to meditate upon this, it's a little bit too big. It's too vast for us to meditate. And so in the tradition of the secret mantra of Vajrayana, we have the particular instructions, and what we meditate upon is not the whole Dharma expanse, but the mind. So the Dharma expanse is something that permeates the entire environment and all of the sentient beings within it. And so as a way to recognize what that is, if we meditate upon it in our mind, look at the nature of the mind, then that is the way to meditate upon this. And so this is what the Lama points out to us. And so the Lama is the Buddha in a human form. When we think about the Lama, of course, the Lama is human, seems human, but when we look at it, actually, the Lama is the Buddha. And the Buddha is unrepayably kind to us. And so he points out the secret awareness, the authentic, ultimate, basic sanity as it is, Buddha in a human form, stay in the center of the heart. And so we want to be able to receive the blessings of the Lama. And so this is the first part, the homage. The next section is the pledge to compose, and this is the fourth line. I will say a couple uncontrived and spontaneous words. Now, often when people compose something like a treatise of some sort, often it's something someone has encouraged you or asked you to write it or whatever. But here, this isn't like this. This is uncontrived and spontaneous, just naturally welled up without being contrived or altered, just welled up immediately. And so there's no need for anyone to encourage. And so Trungpa Rinpoche developed this wonderful experience, natural experience of realization. And so at that point, we didn't need to contrive or do anything. It just naturally welled up. And he just had to write this song. And so I will say a couple uncontrived and spontaneous words. And when he says a couple words here, a couple doesn't necessarily mean two. Here, the couple just means a few. It's not a long song, it's just a few words. So I will say a couple uncontrived and spontaneous words. Now, when we are practicing the Dharma, the methods of practicing the Dharma, generally a way of sort of summarizing it is we can say we have the view, the meditation, the conduct, and the result. So we have these four things: view, meditation, conduct, and result. And so among these here, first we have the view. And so the main part of the song begins with a discussion of the view. And when we say view, then what is it that we actually mean when we say view? Well, it's like when we're going someplace. You have to know where it is that you're going. And so in order to find out where it is, you look at the map or MapQuest or Google or whatever, and you look and you see, well, where is it that you need to go? How far do you need to go? Where do you need to turn? How do you know if you're going to drive in the car, how do you turn? Where do you go? What roads you go on? And so you first look at this carefully and you get to know, and you know where you need to go. And so that is like the view. And so the view is knowing, well, how is it that we need to meditate? What is it that we meditate? How do we meditate? How is it that we can develop the experience? And so knowing that is what we call the view. Now, is merely having the view alone, is that going to be enough? It's not enough. We also need to practice it through meditation. And so we have both the view and the meditation. But the first section that is taught here is the section on the view. And so when we talk about the view, there are actually two different ways that we can develop the view. The first of these is through inference, and the second is through direct perception. So inference and direct perception. Now, the first of these is inference. And so when we have to develop this view that comes through inference and logic. And so what does that mean? Why is it that we need to do that? Well, we need to know what is it that the meditation is, what is the essence of meditation, what are we doing, what is the viewpoint that we're doing. That is the view that comes from inference. And then in the Vajrayana teachings, we also have the view of direct perception. This is looking at the nature of the mind and seeing how they are, looking directly at the nature of the mind. And so the main part of the song, which begins with line 5, begins with the discussion of the view, and of the two types of view, the view of the inference and the view of direct perception. It begins with a discussion of the view of inference, which reads, "It has been a long, long time since I lost Mahamudra. What am I, a little child, who so passionate to do? I sit by the side of my lover, everlasting bliss, on the verge of seeing what I have never seen before." And so here, when we want to meditate, we need to meditate upon the nature of Mahamudra. The nature of Mahamudra is what we meditate upon, but this is something that we don't know, we haven't known. It's from the very beginning, from beginningless samsara, we have not realized, we have not known what Mahamudra is. Perhaps some of the best practitioners here have some realization of what Mahamudra is, but other than that, most of us do not really have any, we don't know. We haven't understood it, we haven't known it. And so we have lost Mahamudra for a long, long time. And so what am I, a little child who's so passionate to do? I'm here and I feel like I'm wondering, what am I going to do? It's like I have this idea about it. I know what it is, I've studied it. I know that I've lost this for a long, long time. I have this view, I have studied, I've practiced, but I want to be able to practice this nature of all phenomena, the Dharmata. And how is it that I can practice? How is it that I can come to practice or understand the nature of the mind? Where is it? This is right next to us. I sit by the side of my lover, everlasting bliss. It's the nature of the mind, the nature of all phenomena is not something that is far away. It's right next to us. It's not far. And so the nature of the mind is something that is right here. It's within the mind itself. We haven't seen it up to now, but even though we haven't seen it up to now, it's like we're on the verge of seeing what we have never seen before. And so we have this good understanding, and we feel like it's right there. It's right next to us. We are on the verge of seeing this that we have not yet seen before. And so this is teaching the view that comes out of inference, the view that comes through reading, listening, and contemplating the instructions. And then through reading and listening and contemplating, we develop the real certainty in the instructions. Then following this, Trungpa Rinpoche talks about the view that comes from direct perception. This starts in line 9. And so what is it that we first need to do when we practice? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to gather the accumulation of merit. We need to, and in particular, in our Vajrayana practices, what we do are the preliminary practices, the ngundro or preliminary practices. And so the first part is teaching the reasons for doing the preliminary practices. And these are starting in line 9. It reads, I assembled the provisions of pure renunciation and went to scout the mountainsides of the three solitudes. And so here first, it's assembled the provisions of pure renunciation. So pure renunciation is not being attached to samsara, not being too greedy for samsara, not being greedy for wealth and clothes, not being attached to wealth and clothes and sensory pleasures. It's developing the renunciation. And so here it's called the provisions of this. So provisions, this is just a comparison here. This means the renunciation. And so what it means is that when we practice the Dharma, what we need to do is we need to develop this renunciation, and we need to do the preliminary practices. And we went to scout the mountainsides of the three solitudes. This is like doing the preliminary practices and in scouting in a solitary place, doing the preliminary practices to gather the accumulation of merit. And then I was the spy of the instructions that speak the truth. And so I encountered the instructions on the view. I read these instructions. I encountered these instructions, and then it reads, "There is someone who lives within the innate self-secret city, a single sight of whom is enough. Could that be her, I wonder?" And so it's like there's just one thing. There's the natural secret, self-secret city, the natural secret that we haven't realized up to now. But just one view of this is enough. Just one view of her is enough. So just one view, just catching a glimpse, just one view of the nature of the mind, or of the way that the Dharma nature, the way the Dharmata is enough. And so in this way, this is like practicing doing the ngundro practices, gathering the accumulation of merit, going to an isolated place and meditating and doing our practice. And so if we do this, then it's like saying, a single sight of whom is if, could that be her, I wonder? It's like, this probably is it. This probably is Mahamudra. This has got to be it. It's like having that certainty. It's like, if we see this, we have the certainty and the belief and the experience that comes from that. So that is enough for this evening's teaching. And so now I would like to make an aspiration prayer that this be helpful for all of you. And I would like you also to keep the same prayer in mind. The prayer that by listening to these teachings of Trungpa Rinpoche, this will really help you all in your individual practice. So please keep this prayer in mind.
The enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.